Hello! One of the most common questions I get in the video about the tunnel bore is, does it work on Bedrock? And as you can see, we are in the Bedrock edition right now, and well, I thought I'd give it a go, try to make a Bedrock tunnel bore, and it does work. Boom. And if you're wondering why I have such a strange skin, this is exactly the same skin that I have on Java Edition, except that apparently in Bedrock you cannot turn off the jacket and your hat, and so I have a beard on top of my beard, and the suit is permanently on. I have the exact same outfit under the suit, but in Bedrock you cannot turn off the suit. I'm keeping it because it's funny, and the beard kind of indicates the way I look in real life right now. Because of the quarantine, I haven't really visited the barber for way too long. Anyway, we have a tunnel bore here, and it does work. I will show you in a second how all the various components work. I'm just gonna show that this does indeed work. It is not perfectly reliable, I will warn you straight from the beginning. Because, well, one, I don't really understand Bedrock. Bedrock is kind of weird. And also, I think it's just some randomization thing. We'll get into that. Anyway, this is the tunnel bore here. And let me show you how the various components work. So we're going to start with this thing. This is a single-step engine. Let's just move away from this massive block of stone here. We start with these two blocks here, put an observer and a piston here, and down here we have a fence gate. We have an observer looking at the fence gate. The reason why I'm doing this kind of block by block explanation is because I don't know how to do world downloads or if they even make sense on Bedrock. So I'm just gonna show you pretty much how to build this thing. And yeah, that's not gonna be something I'm gonna be doing commonly. Anyway, we start with this thing. This is pretty much the same as the single-step engine I have in Java Edition, except that we're using a fence gate here rather than a note block. So the purpose of this machine is to move a flying machine by one step. And we do that by this observer observing that this fence gate has changed. It will power then this block. This block powers this sticky piston, which pulls this whole segment back, including the fence gate, the observer, and this block of stone. And when this gets pulled back here, we can see it very quickly. This observer notices that, oh, something has changed. It powers this piston, and this piston pushes this whole bit back. We can remove these ones. So this is the most basic single-step flying machine engine, and I'm just adding this observer here to power this piston so that we can push something else in front of it. So we can have, I don't know, something like that. And now that bit in front is going to be pushing that slime block. Now, the next part is very much inspired by the movable block entities flying machine I published just a week ago on Java Edition. It is a way to pretty much reproduce the single-step engine, but that doesn't get triggered by a fence gate in this case, or a note block on Java Edition. And by the way, the fact that clicking a note block doesn't get registered with observers on Bedrock is just very annoying. You should be really asking Mojang to implement that for you, because that just makes sense. Anyway, instead the next segment is gonna get powered and moved around by, well, on Java Edition, the movable block entities, I actually was just noticing that this block is moving, but I actually have found a slightly better method. So this block of glazed terracotta only has to exist there to be pushing this observer, but it is important for us that it is non-sticky. But what's happening here is that it's a very similar mechanism that we're using back there. Instead, here we're gonna have a dispenser. No, not that way. We're gonna have a dispenser here with one block of air gap. Under the dispenser, we also have a sticky piston. So this observer will be powering this dispenser and this sticky piston at the same time. That is very important for us. And then we need some slime to keep the whole thing together, and one more block of slime here, which I will explain in a second. So now we have pretty much most of the machine done. Let's just see it working. So this observer powered this dispenser, and that also powered this sticky piston. This sticky piston pulls back this segment of the flying machine back, and when this segment moves, this observer notices that it has moved, powers this piston, and pushes this segment forward. So that's how we get the whole thing moving forward. This block of slime is necessary because if this dispenser dispenses a TNT and there is no block above, the TNT will just float up. And we don't want that. We want the TNT to be dispensed into this block. And yeah, now we have the whole thing moving forward. So now we can add some TNT here. Let's just add one single TNT first, just to see that things happen correctly. So the TNT is very hard to see, and I am kind of missing some tools on Bedrock that would allow me to freeze time to see exactly what's happening. But if you look very quickly, if we look try to be very fast here, the TNT appears inside this block from the dispenser, and then immediately this thing gets pushed, which allows this slime block to push the TNT and make it fly forward. So now we just need to catch the TNT somehow, and we can do it by adding an observer here and a piston. And I do know how many blocks of stone we need, but let's pretend that I don't. Let's add maybe 4, and then add a few ancient debris here just to see what happens. Ancient debris must be here because it's not going to get blown up by the TNT. And we can look at it like this, and we see that the TNT lands on this block, which means we can remove this and replace this by stone. And there has to be 5 stone here, and an air gap, and 2 ancient debris in the front. And now we have a functioning tunnel bore. This ancient debris has to be here because otherwise the TNT would be blowing up this block. Let's see what happens when we have stone here. You can see... Oh! We caught one of the problems that exists with this machine that I have not been able to fix. Once in maybe 10 TNTs, maybe 20, the TNT will fly short. I do not understand why. I have no idea why it works like that, but it does. Unfortunately, this is not something I know how to fix, so you will have to monitor your tunnel bore and make sure to rebuild. There's just like a few blocks of stone that get blown up here. But let's go back to the demonstration I wanted to do earlier to demonstrate why we need 2 ancient debris in the front. Because this TNT will blow up this block. But if it's ancient debris does not blow up by TNT, we are now fine. And other than that bug you just saw happen, and I am keeping that recording because even though I didn't plan it, but I'm keeping that in the recording because I wanted to show you, and sometimes it takes many minutes or even half an hour before that bug happens. But it does happen, unfortunately. I'm sorry, I don't know how to fix it. There is a solution that you could probably use, is to just build this whole thing out of ancient debris, but I don't think anybody wants to do that. It's way too expensive. We can get away with 2 ancient debris. So now we can look at the machine, how it performs in making a tunnel, and it's actually quite good, because pretty much... Oh, and the bug happened again. Yeah, unfortunately. And this is also a good demonstration because when this bug happens, not only do you have to replace these 2 blocks, unless you want to replace them with ancient debris permanently, that is fine, but also when this happens, unfortunately, this block does not blow up. And that means that this machine cannot move forward anymore, and that's bad, so you have to remove this block as well. Sorry, I do not know how to make it reliable, don't know if that's a problem with the machine, me not understanding how Bedrock works, or it's just inherent randomness in Bedrock with how things get pushed out of here. I don't know how to fix it. But usually it doesn't happen, and when you're running a tunnel bore, you need to pay attention anyway. And what do we need to pay attention to? Well, first thing is that you might run into a lava pocket. Something like this. There is lava pouring out in front of the machine. Now, let's see what happens if I shoot a TNT there. Seems to work fine. It will explode. But let's remove the lava and see what happened. Nothing happened. The lava prevents the explosion from damaging blocks in front of it. So if you have any lava in front of the machine, you need to clear it before you run it. Otherwise, well, there has to be a block, at least one block of air in front of this thing. Otherwise, the machine cannot move forward. The same problem happens if you get water. Let's pour some water there. It looks fine. But again, the explosion didn't damage any blocks and the machine will get stuck. So you need to clear water in front of the machine as well. And the last thing you need to watch out for is gravel, because an explosion like this is very likely to remove one block and there is some gravel above, and the gravel will fall down maybe like this and maybe on this side. And let's see what happens here. This might actually damage the machine, but let's hope it doesn't. Is this reliable on Bedrock? Interesting. In Java Edition, it would be most likely that the TNT would get stuck on the gravel because the TNT is never flying exactly straight. But let's say you get gravel like this. It should be quite obvious what happens, right? Because the TNT doesn't have anywhere to fly. Let's be a little bit safer and just put it here so I don't damage the front of the machine. But you can see what happens here now. The TNT got stuck on the gravel and blew things up that shouldn't have been blown up. So you also need to watch out for gravel. Well, on Bedrock, maybe you don't have to watch for gravel that falls on the sides. On Java Edition, you definitely would have to. But if the gravel falls here, the TNT will get stuck on the gravel and blow up the machine. So keep the area tidy. But you may think, this isn't very impressive. It's just one little tunnel. How high is it? It's like 5-6 blocks high. It's 5 to 7 blocks wide. The rocks get removed in a, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high, and 1, 2, 3. Is it 3? No, there are rocks here that are left, so we would have to count. Yeah, it's basically a 5x5 tunnel that we end up with. It's not too impressive, so can we do better? Well, kind of. On Java Edition, we can make the tunnel bores pretty much infinitely expandable as far as we can get render distance on the server. I do not think, at least I don't know how to do this right on Bedrock. And the problem is that, as you can see, I have 4 barrels here that are shooting TNT with dispensers here. And this does work. There is my button. It does work. The problem is that we have to fire the TNTs exactly at the same time. Because otherwise, if there is a TNT in the air here and this TNT explodes and this hasn't exploded yet, this explosion will probably push this TNT to the side, damage things here, might even push the TNT back into the machine and blow it up. So we need to fire everything exactly at the same time. And with 4 barrels, this is doable relatively easily. I'll show you in a second how this is done. But once you get to more than 4, it would become an extremely big and complicated mechanism and probably wouldn't work, because I do not think there are any mechanics on Bedrock Edition that give you instant wires. So I have removed the stone now, so we can see exactly how this thing here works. But first, to understand how this works, we need to understand how this thing moves forward. So I can add a piston here. So without moving the engine, let's just skip the engine entirely and see how this works. If we push this block of glazed terracotta forward, this segment moves forward. And did this run out of TNT? Yes, good. Actually, nice that it doesn't have any TNT in it. So we can push this block of glazed terracotta forward, and the entire barrel moves forward. So this bit here from the glazed terracotta and forward, I call that a barrel. So on the quad machine here, all the barrels are exactly the same like there, except I sometimes do change blocks into lights because this might be very useful when you are digging a very long tunnel, and to light it up while you're doing things so you can see what's going on is useful. So sometimes I can change some of blocks on my machines into shroom lights or sea lanterns or whatever it is. It doesn't matter here. This, you could replace this with stone if you want to. That will work too. Let's actually see if I'm not lying. I don't think I am. Yeah, no, this works absolutely fine. I like to have shroom lights because shroom lights light things up. So the barrels are exactly the same. It's just the way we are pushing these blocks of glazed terracotta forward that has changed. And let's start with the engine, because the engine is laid out slightly differently. We start with 2 slime blocks like this. We place a fence gate here. This will be the fence gate we click to move the machine forward. Put an observer here looking at that fence gate. This observer needs to power a block. We have a sticky piston on top of that block. And now if we would click the fence gate, this would make this sticky piston pull these 2 slime towards it. Of course, when that happens, we want a piston to push this little bit forward, and to have that, we have a piston here, observer here, and a block of slime here. It looks like this, and this should now move forward. Now, every time this thing moves forward, we want it to pull something behind it. And for that, we have a sticky piston here and an observer like this. The observer should be looking downwards. So now, this sticky piston will pull something behind it. If we put a slime block here, you can see that this sticky piston will be pulling that slime block behind it. And now it's just a simple matter of expanding this. Since we want the biggest possible separation between the barrels, because unless they are maximum separation, the TNT exploding here will be damaging the blocks on this side. So we need to make the bar of slime behind it 8 blocks long. I recommend you put 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side and 1, 2, 3 on this side. So yes, this will not be centered. There's nothing we can do about it. In here we can add a piston and a piston on this end as well, and then we need to power these pistons every time we move forward, and we do it by having observers looking down. The same thing on this side. Now this thing will be pushing things in front of it, so let's put a block of slime here and a block of slime here to see how this works. We click the fence and it pushed the block of slime in front of us. And now we just build exactly the same kind of bar on both sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Piston, 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 and the observers below, just the way we have on that one. And now we have the whole mechanism that would be pushing the barrels forward. So if we click this, all these 4 pistons can be pushing things in front of them. And here you would just build the barrels this way, so with 1 block of gap in front of the glazed terracotta, exactly the same way I showed you how to build the barrel in the beginning when I built this one. It's exactly the same blocks, same placement, same everything. And the rules for the quad tunnel bore are exactly the same as for the small one. You need to clear lava, you need to clear water, you need to clear gravel, and be very aware of the fact that sometimes the TNT doesn't fly all the way forward and will blow up these 2 blocks, which you will have to replace. Sorry about that, I don't know how to fix this. If anybody knows, please let me know in the comments and I will definitely update this. And by the way, like I said, I don't really know if it's sensible to make world downloads for Bedrock Edition. I am not very experienced with Bedrock Edition. So if you think it's a good idea or have a good way of me sharing this world with you, because at the beginning at least there won't be a world download in the description, but if there is a way to add a world download that makes sense for Bedrock players, please let me know, because, well, I'm curious about how Bedrock players are playing the game, because it is slightly different from us Java nerds. In any case, I hope this was enough for you to reproduce this machine in your world. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'll try to answer things, but be aware that I am not a Bedrock player and I'm not very good at Bedrock, so I might not know how to answer everything. But I hope you find this machine useful. Thanks a lot for watching, and have a good tunnel boring. Bye!